Namaste, Yatish.
Namaste, Sarita.
I'm so delighted to have you join us, and I've heard so much about integrity matters. I'm very curious to know, and I'm sure our readers also want to understand what does integrity matters do.
It's a pleasure, Sarita. Thanks for having me. I'm one of the founders of Integrity Matters, and we are primarily in the space of, we are a specialist in providing whistleblower services solutions to companies. So, what happens is companies sign us up, and we are a conduit for their employees and stakeholders to red flag any non-compliance or unethical conduct that they might come across in under the purview of their whistleblower policy. So we take whistleblower complaints and we pass them on to the companies, giving the whistleblowers an option to remain anonymous if they don't want to come forward openly. So broadly, that's what we do.
Oh, wow. I mean, that's a long way from the time when I remember you would personally go to HR or somebody within the organization or email to the person in charge about it. So with this being completely online, and I assume it would be a very sensitive and confidential information that comes in, how do you see the role that AI plays in the nature of work that you do?
AI can play an important role, and that's the future because what happens is when we take whistleblower complaints, around 60% of whistleblowers choose to remain anonymous. So AI has a role to play in several aspects of what we do in the future. Firstly, it will improve protection of identity of whistleblowers. Right now, we have humans taking whistleblower complaints, and there is always all kinds of controls that you have to have in place to make sure that the identity of the whistleblower is not leaked, because there could be repercussions for the person raising a concern. So AI can, in the future, whistleblowers will be talking to an AI interface, and AI might do a better job in protecting the personally identifiable information in terms of, let's say, somebody calls a telephone number, AI might do a better job of sort of masking the voice of the caller, for example, or protecting the IP address and other details, right? So that's one area. The other area is from a company standpoint. You know, sometimes companies grapple with frivolous complaints or complaints that they feel are malified or made with bad intentions, or that might be false. So AI can do a better job of weeding out complaints that are frivolous or made, false, based on the merit and the data available to the model, so that companies don't waste time in investigating matters that are unlikely to be substantiated after an investigation. So
Hmm.
that's the second area where AI can help. And the third area, also important, where AI can help is in the investigations itself. So what happens is when a whistleblower makes a complaint, the companies have to investigate the matter, and the investigations naturally involve humans with their own biases and flaws, right? So AI can do a better job of formulating an investigation plan based on the nature of the issue, even conduct interviews which otherwise involve humans. So what happens is a lot of times there is no hard evidence. Something happened between you and me. Now, how do you investigate that matter, right? So, what if, let's say, I show a video of an interview to an AI model and it can tell me whether you're lying or not, right? That would be a great value addition in getting to the facts of the matter. And a lot of these things right now depend on the skills of the investigator or the interrogator, like an FBI interrogating a witness, right? And there are obviously human flaws and biases. So the interrogator has to be very skilled. In the future, I'm assuming this will be an AI interrogator who will be very smart in getting to the fact of the matter.
Mhm. You mentioned a very interesting thing about the human bias that would come in from an investigator or an interrogator, because the
Yeah.
AI algorithm is built by human beings in the end.
Yeah.
So what kind of ethical considerations do you think will need to be put in place in the nature of your work, given that people are, first of all, gathering courage to come and speak?
Yeah.
Doing is not an easy job
No,
for
not at
somebody.
all.
It
No.
takes complete different kind of a mindset to prep oneself to come and say. It's like a confession in front of a priest. You don't know what the priest looks like on the other end, right? So when you have an AI system which is sort of masking the confidentiality, is also supporting you in getting the right data and everything, what kind of ethics do you think need to come in?
Primarily, I think these models have to be free of biases. And I think the challenge there is that the data that you're feeding already have those biases. So, for example, take, for example, the issue of sexual harassment of women at the workplace or men. Now, I've met with several people, leaders who, let's say you talk about a sexual harassment complaint, a lady made a complaint that she's being harassed. I've seen sometimes that the knee jerk reaction of a male leader will be to maybe she led the man into that behavior or something. She wanted to get something out of it. So the instant reaction is biased without even an investigation. You can only get to the fact of the matter after you investigate. But there is an upfront bias that, oh, I'm not sure if this is a real case. I think this is a fake complaint, right? And I think AI models should not have these biases. They should look at the facts and be objective. But I don't know how that's going to happen given the data we feed itself has biases
Mm.
inherent
Yeah.
to.
So, but what happens when there are biases? So when there is no moral compass, what can go wrong, Yatish?
We work in the space of business ethics and integrity. So if there is no moral compass in the AI model, there is no business. There is no work for us because we are operating in that very space, right?
Yeah.
So if the model itself is not doesn't have the guardrails for ethics, then it's of no use basically because we are trying to improve ethical standards of a company and individual behavior and conduct in line with the company's code of conduct and the laws. So what we do go beyond legal compliance, right? And when we're talking of ethics, the AI that we use cannot itself have ethical issues.
Yeah, I get that, and
I
it
mean,
looks like an oxymoron, right? That you're talking about ethics, but the AI doesn't have ethics, the framework doesn't have ethics. So naturally, it has to be built in right from the home. It has to
yeah,
be in from home. Otherwise, as you said, there is no business for you. We are very happy to have you with us in this FIA podcast, and we are, I think the only podcast in the country that is talking of ethics in AI. What
yeah.
do you think communities like us can do better or more, to ensure that ethics in AI becomes a subject that everybody understands and talks about?
Right. I think somebody like you, the primary role that I see is to create a self-regulating guidelines for companies to make sure that models have certain boundary conditions. And then that can become the basis of regulating AI. Ultimately, regulation will come in. You cannot let it loose for long. But what happens is a lot of these models are proprietary. So sitting outside a company like Google or Microsoft, you would not even know what's going on there. So how would you even? So the challenge for you is how would you even know what's going on? You only see the output. And I was just reading an article from 2016. Actually, I should send this to you. It will blow your mind. It blew my mind just now. That there is a game called Go played in China, and Google's DeepMind defeated the world champion in 2016, 8 years back. So what's surprising about that is not that it defeated that. A computer defeated a human in a very complex game, but it made a move called a shoulder hit in a particular position. That move in that position has never been seen in that game ever before. And the developers of that AI do not understand why the algorithm made that move. Even the developers do not understand the behavior of the algorithm because it's become so complex now. It's self learning, it's teaching itself. So the challenge is even with the best intentions, the developers themselves don't know how the algorithm is going to behave. Now, how do you deal with that situation where even if Google or Microsoft decide we are going to have ethics in AI, it's not necessarily in their control either. And that to me is a bit scary. I
Yeah,
mean,
it is. It takes me back to the time when you remember Gemini came up with,
yeah,
with the racial feature
yeah,
on prominent men of history or something, and there was a huge backlash, and Google had to say, "Look, we don't know how Gemini did that." So
yeah.
that is the scarier part. I want to just pick up on the last point that you said about there needs to be a self-regulating policy, and companies need to do that. But how amenable do you think companies would be to look into that, given that you also have an online whistleblowing? Is that easy to convince people to shift to an online whistleblowing system? And how is it?
Because I think it will be cost efficient and it will be more efficient. So for our business, yes, but companies developing the AI models themselves, I think it's a tough sell, right? Because for example, Yuval Noah Harari wrote a book called Nexus, and many people, including Elon Musk, signed a pledge that they will stop AI development for 6 months. After signing that, 4 months after that, he launched his AI company. So the pot of the gold is so big at the end that I don't think anybody's able to resist that temptation. And but I think there is a precedent. Like back in 2000, I was doing research on cloning, and they cloned the first sheep called Dolly, and they realized the potential of that technology, and they banned human cloning, and we've not seen human cloning since then. So that there is a precedent; it can be done, but the speed at which this thing is going is beyond anybody's. I think the biggest concern is unknown unknowns, as somebody said, right? We don't know what we don't know, and that's the scary part.
No, but I would like to leave us with the hope that things can get better, and there will be a time when we will be controlling the
With
unknown.
people like you driving some of this, of course, I'm sure it'll move the needle in the right direction.
Thank you so much, Yatish, for joining us.
All right, nice talking. Bye.
Bye.